This video is brought to you by Dice. I have made a couple videos on this already, but I think it's important to emphasize in the world we're living in right now, the truth, I think the uncomfortable truth behind tech layoffs right now, and what do you need to know about them? The often overlooked fact is that despite tech being a booming industry, despite the insane inflated salaries that many of us receive, although not most, not all, but many of us do, we often experience layoffs. And I think we see it every single day. And every single day, it feels like at least, we see large tech companies to up and coming booming startups laying off their employees. For example, even the most profitable private company that has not gone public, like Stripe, laid off their employees. It's crazy. Now check this out. Since July of last year, Amazon has laid off a total of 27,000 employees. Okay. October of last year, they laid off 150. Then in November, they laid off 10,000 employees. Then in January, they laid off 8,000 employees. Then just a couple months ago, in March, they laid off 9,000 employees. A total of 27,000 lives of people. Now, please note that not all of these people are software engineers. These are just people who work at tech companies. It's kind of depressing in a way when you see this, because for someone like myself, where when I remember when I was dreaming of working in tech, and when I was in tech my first 2 years as a developer, dreaming of working at these big tech companies that I just named, knowing how well they paid, and then seeing all the employees are laying off now, right? Even Google, right, laying off employees. Even Microsoft, who, from what I've heard, has never laid off employees ever. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's from what I've heard. Seeing that can be kind of depressing. But that's kind of the norm right now. And while it's true that in tech, we're not immune to layoffs, there are resources available out there to help those who have been laid off, who are in a sticky situation as well. And one of those resources is a sponsor of today's video, which is Dice.com. So if y'all don't know Dice.com, Dice is a leading tech career hub, right? If you're in the tech industry or looking to break into it, I'd say Dice is the place to go. Dice.com has a multitude of job postings tailored to a variety of different tech specialties. Just head over to dice.com/jobs. But Dice.com is more than just a job board, believe it or not. They offer resources to guide your journey and make you stand out amongst all the different applicants, right? Their career advice section is rich with insights into the tech market trends and tips for job hunting. They even have articles that dive into which tech jobs are experiencing the most layoffs and how that landscape is actually changing, and you can check it out in the link description below. So if you've been affected by these tech layoffs, or you're looking to level up your career or get a job in tech in general, Dice.com is an invaluable resource that you can go to at this very moment. Remember to check out the links in the description below. And now let's dive deeper into the reason behind why these tech layoffs are actually happening. Well, before the tech recession, before the pandemic, you name it, usually when layoffs happened was because we had mergers or acquisitions, right? Once, let's say a larger company acquired your smaller company, a lot of times what would happen, they let a lot of people go or let go of all the unnecessary people because they have people at the larger company that can do your job for you. That was usually the case, right? Or a company literally just going down the hill and no longer exists today, which happens too. But I think one thing I want to focus on is on truly, generally, the dark side of tech, which is one of the bigger reasons, and there are two reasons, but one of the two reasons that layoffs happen is so that companies can inflate their numbers. What do I mean by that? Inflate their numbers, I mean profits, is because the number one expense that companies have are their employees. So I have contractors that work for me, and my contractors last year, I paid them around $7,000 to $9,000 a month. Okay, to my contractors, video editors, assistant, channel managers, you name it, $7,000 to $9,000 a month, depending on how often I use the contractors, right? That's a lot of money. And so I understand why companies are just laying off so many different employees in tech in general. Like, and you have to understand, like, the average, let's say software engineer. So let's just say in tech, the average salary in tech is around $120,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Now times that by, let's say, 1,000 engineers. I think that's equivalent to $120 million. By laying off 1,000 engineers who work in things that aren't as necessary, now you have increased your profits. At the end of the year, it increases by an additional $120 million. $120 million is a lot of money, even for larger companies. That's a lot. So let's just say a company like Google, who laid off 12,000 employees. Let's just say the average salary is $120,000 base salary, not including RSUs. That is equivalent to, I believe, $1.4 billion. So by laying off 12,000 employees, Google increased their profit margins, I guess, right? By how much? $1.4 billion. Stocks for every company in general was going down the drain, but Meta stocks, after they laid off 10,000 employees in March of 2 months ago, their stocks increased to, I think, $200 now, which is crazy for it to go up that way. Even All In Talk podcast talked about it. The All In podcast talked about it. Now, okay, this makes sense. As a company that's public, they have to please their investors, the people who own stocks in the company. But I think that's one thing to understand, is that these companies don't care about us. These companies don't care about you. They don't care about me. It's a business. They care about themselves. But again, this is another reason why these layoffs are happening in tech right now. Just to make it look like they're making more money, to increase their stock price, so that how the rich of the rich, these investors who own all these stocks, who invested in the companies, will become even more richer. Secondly, why do these layoffs often happen? A lot of these layoffs happen simply because these companies hired way too many people. Way too many people. This is when everyone was in bidding wars of negotiations and offer salaries, right? This is when everyone was paid insane salaries. But now when you actually look at blind.com, and I'm on there like every day, and when I'm blind.com, you hear people who are making $500,000, $600,000 at one company. They received an offer for a manager level at Uber, and the total compensation will only be $270,000 a year. Now, $270,000 is a lot for a lot of people, but if you're making X amount at this company, $500,000, $600,000, and one company like Uber, who's a large company, wants to take you away and is not going to go above $270K, despite how much you're already earning. God, that sucks. The times have changed for sure. But I think that's why now more than ever, and I think it's important to understand, is that we do live in a time where we need to think of ourselves now. Now is not the time to be loyal. Now is the time to think of yourself, right? Now, please note that it's not always green on the other side, but if you get a better offer than a job you have, if you could get a title increase, maybe make $40,000, $50,000 more at this job that you're interviewing at, I'd always say go for it. But I would say only go for it if you're really not happy with your current job. If it's life-changing, if it's worth the risk, because maybe you'll be laid off a couple of months down the line, maybe you're more secure at your current job, think about it, right? I'm in that situation. My job is very secure. My job, we went through layoffs. I believe we laid off like, what, 25% of our company, 22% of our company. I was one of the fortunate ones to stay at the company, still have a job. My job seems very secure from what they tell me, right? From what they tell me. You know, for me to leave in a job, even if they're willing to pay me, right, $50,000 more, right? So I'm making between $200,000, $250,000 a year right now. Even if they're willing to pay me, let's say $300,000 a year, it will be very difficult for me to leave my job to join the company because of job security in this tech recession we're in right now. Usually I'm like, I can find a new job in 3 months, and I can. But will that job pay the same amount? No, not necessarily. It'll probably pay $30,000, $40,000 less than what I'm earning now, right? But anyway, it's good to note that the grass is not always greener on the other side.